What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the 2025 LAIC Championship Series Cup, and the main focus of today's video is going to be Turtonator, and that is because we've already taken a look at Turtonator, but I wanted to focus on the fact that it has access to both Incinerate and Ember, and which you should use in this meta. In my opinion, it's Ember, but there is a valid argument for Incinerate, as well as it does allow you to have nice fast move pressure. You still get to the moves relatively quickly, but the main thing for me on Ember is fast move timing, and fast move timing is really important in this meta when the rank 1 Pokemon, which is absolutely everywhere, a Rangaroo, is a 4-turn user, and it makes it really awkward to use a 5-turn Incinerate user. You're always giving free energy to the opponent. So with Ember, not only do you charge quicker, you don't give any free energy, you can get to more charge moves before you get taken out. And you're going to see in the simulations here on the right that Ember has a lower win rate but a better average, and that's just because a lot of your matchups are a lot closer because you pace these charge moves a lot quicker. So without further ado, let's hop into these battles. This is the same team that I used in a previous video, but it is different battles. So into the first match, we've got Glalie into a Dusclops. This is a pretty neutral lead. However, we do have super effective coverage with Shadow Ball. So I am going to be letting the Shadow Punch go, as that is going to tickle the non-Shadow Glalie, and now I can look to overfarm a play to the CMP tie with the opponent's next charge move, and Shadow Ball is super effective damage. So now it's up to my opponent. They decide to put up a shield early on, and Dusclops can survive a Shadow Ball, so that was kind of surprising. They go for another one, and now in comes the Zoroark. My opponent is completely energy dry. They end up coming in with a Turtonator, so I'm going to farm up and go for the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is neutral damage, but it is stab from the Zoroark. It nearly one-shots the Turtonator, which means it's actually going to set up a nice little Ember farm down for my own Turtonator or my Glalie. Either one will not take the Incinerate damage, so I come in with the Glalie. I end up leaving with an Avalanche loaded, expecting them to come back with the Dusclops. I ended up under-tapping the move, but they end up catching onto a Glalie of their own, but in comes Turtonator. You'll notice I am still on Flamethrower. This is before I was able to get the 15 TMs from the LAIC Twitch stream. I am now on Dragon Claw, and Dragon Claw is definitely the way to go. That said, I had no TMs at this point. I'm running Flamethrower, and I think it comes in clutch in a couple matchups. That said, I'm going to outpace the opponent to 2 charge moves here before they get to their second. And Brutal Swing is super effective. However, it will not knock out. But I know that I can just go for a full Ember farm down if I shield this up, so that it's exactly what I'm going to go for. I end up getting that full farm down. Back in comes a Glalie, but Glalie will be hit with a super effective Flamethrower. A Glalie can definitely not live that charge move. We get the Ember farm down of the Dusclops, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Glalie into the non-Shadow Shiny Gyarados. So this is a pretty good lead for the Glalie, as Rollout is super effective damage and Avalanche is neutral. The opponent will throw right before I get to the charge move, which means this is not enough for a crunch. This is only an Aqua Tail, so I will let that go. They end up going for a catch on a Dusknoir, or maybe just pivoting into the Dusknoir as their safe switch, which allows me to grab his shield instantly with the Shadow Ball, and now in comes Zoroark to punish the Dusknoir safe switch. I know this is resisted damage, but Zoroark is insanely glassy that I will actually put up a shield, and then I will look to go for the full Shadow Claw farm down. I leave with so much energy that I can actually go for the back-to-back foul plays, and if the opponent lets this go, because Gyarados is rather glassy, I can just look for a full Shadow Claw farm down. Unfortunately, the opponent does make it to a charge move on 1 HP, but I'm going to leave with back-to-back foul plays here, so I will put up the shield. They end up having a Turtonator in the back, so I could have gone for 1 in the move, and Shadow Ball would have been the way to go, but they do respect it with a shield, and they are on Incinerate. And unfortunately, because I don't have Dragon Claw, this matchup is actually going to be very tricky. I'm going to go for the catch onto the Glalie, hoping that I did just get a catch of the Dragon Claw, because I'm going to need a catch. They end up going for a full undercharge, but they undercharge too much. It allows me to get to 2 super effective rollouts and a neutral Avalanche. This will chip the opponent pretty well deep into the yellow health range, and because they're on Incinerate, I know I can go for 2 in the move. Is Brutal Swing enough to knock out the Turtonator from this range? No, it is not. They make it to another charge move. I believe this is enough for the Dragon Claw. Can Turtonator hang on? We hang on with 1 HP. We end up making it to yet another Brutal Swing, and Brutal Swing from this range will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Turtonator, and we are able to take that win. That is the advantage right there between Ember and Incinerate. But into the next matchup, we've got Glalie into the Dugong. This is a fantastic lead for the Glalie, as Rollout are hitting for super effective damage, and Ice Shards are hitting for resisted damage. We also pace to the opponent the exact same, making it to the Shadow Ball the exact same time that they make it to the Drill Run. So I will just be letting this go. Drill Run is neutral damage, but it's not even enough to two-shot the Glalie, whereas Shadow Ball plus the rollouts actually are enough to two-shot the Dugong, I believe. So we're going to go for Shadow Ball number 2. The opponent is actually going to commit a shield, and now I'm just going to let this go because all this does is set up a nice farm down for the Zoroark. Unless they can't even get there, they end up coming in with the Dusclops. Dusclops is met with the Zoroark. This is a charge move I know I definitely can live. Dusclops hits kind of like a wet noodle, so definitely can live this. Even a neutral Ice Punch doesn't do all that much. I'm now going to go for 2 in the move so that second Hex does not register, and that Foul Play will be enough to knock out. And then I leave with a little bit of residual energy so that I can outpace the Dugong if it comes back in. But in the back is a Charizard. It is a Dragon Breath Charizard at that, which is fantastic because that allows me to get to the Foul Play. Foul Play grabs the final shield from the opponent, and now we have a 2-shield advantage against the opponent. I, of course, don't have Dragon Claw here, so I can't one-shot the opponent. However, I am just going to farm up to back-to-back Brutal Swings and then just watch for a catch. The opponent has high incentive to go for a catch here, so I am going to commit both shields and then just watch for it because the opponent will not be able to outpace. They go for the catch. They're unsuccessful. I'm able to make it to a Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing will not be enough to knock out, but I know I need to leave with a little bit of residual energy. So I go for it. Can I get the full Ember farm down? Yes, I can. Landing the Brutal Swing, coming out with back-to-back Brutal Swings for the Charizard, as one will not be enough to knock out. They live in the red health range, but it does not matter, as we have another Brutal Swing locked and loaded. Brutal Swing number 3 finally picks up the knockout on the Charizard, and we are able to take that win. Into the next matchup, we've got mirror leads, Glalie into Glalie. Both of us are the non-shadow. Let's see how my opponent wants to play this out. I'm just going to go build up to the Shadow Ball and full send it. The opponent is going to do the exact same thing, but of course my opponent will win CMP, as we have the rank 4 Glalie. They end up baiting with an Avalanche, but it actually looks like, plus the rollouts, that 2 Avalanches might be enough to knock out. It's going to be close. It looks like maybe just barely we won't be able to, so I am actually just going to let this go, hoping that I can hang on. I actually do live that, and now in comes Zoroark looking for the full Shadow Claw farm down, and we do get it. The opponent does not make it to another charge move. That is a huge energy lead, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to farm up right before the Goodra is able to make it to an Aqua Tail, firing off the Shadow Ball. This is stab damage. The opponent does not hang on. Goodbye, Goodra. I'm also able to outpace the opponent because of that overfarm, make it to a Foul Play against the Gyarados. This is their final Pokemon. They're going to have to commit a shield here, and then they will look for the full Dragon Breath farm down. Of course, Gyarados is not great for the Turtonator to see. However, we've put them into a range where I can go pretty much straight Brutal Swing. These Embers will eventually add up enough to put them in Brutal Swing range. I get the shield call correct on the first. It is the crunch. No defense fall comes through as well. Brutal Swing number 1 will grab that shield. Here comes the Avalanche, locked and loaded. Avalanche is neutral damage. It easily knocks out the Gyarados, and we are able to take that win. Into the next matchup, we've got Glalie into Dugong once again, so another fantastic lead for the non-shadow Glalie. They end up safe switching into a Dusknoir, only to be punished by the Zoroark. And yes, Dusknoir is completely walled in this matchup, but once again, this Pokemon is so absurdly glassy, and Dusknoir hits pretty hard, and these resisted Astonishes have already put me at half HP, so I will be committing shield. Fortunately for me, they do full send the Dynamic Punch that allows me to outpace the opponent and make it to a Foul Play number 2. The opponent is going to let this go. And now where do they go from here? They're going to come back with a Dugong, but Dugong cannot get a full Ice Shard farm down before we get to the Shadow Ball, and Shadow Ball is stab. It'll hit for massive neutral damage on the Dugong. It puts them into the red health range. In comes Glalie, and in the back is a Claydol for my opponent. So I'm going to be forced to kind of just stay in this matchup, even though rollouts are resisted. Avalanche is super effective, and we can outpace the opponent. The opponent is, of course, going to commit a shield on the first, and Rock Tomb. It's super effective damage, so I will be putting up a shield, and I know that Glalie is my win con, so instead, I'm going to bank that Avalanche for later and come in with my Turtonator. I know, because I pace so quickly to these charge moves, I can get off a couple Brutal Swings, and I can force them to throw energy pretty much right away. The opponent tries to go for a CMP sack swap there, but I do hold on to my energy, but Drill Run will be enough to pick up the knockout. But all that does is set up an absolutely perfect farm down for the Glalie to leave with back-to-back Avalanches. We probably only need one of them, as it is super effective damage. It is a fantastic charge move. It's super effective against the Claydol, so it does knock them out, and we are able to take that win. Into next matchup, we've got Glalie into Raichu. So a bit of an awkward lead. However, we do have two better answers in the back. However, I am just going to stay in and force them to throw their energy. I'm now going to go for the Avalanche on good timing. I'm hoping that this will be able to grab a shield from the opponent. And now in comes Zoroark. Zoroark, of course, not wanting to take too much damage from these Volt Switches, but now that I have grabbed a shield, I'm willing to commit the shield right back. They end up full sending a Wild Charge there, which means that Shadow Claw, that Snuck, will do massive damage to the Raichu. They end up coming in with an Oranguru in the back, but Oranguru will take super effective damage from the foul play. They end up committing to a farm down here, but in case they decide to throw on CMP, I went for the foul play right away, and I'm actually able to grab a second shield from my opponent, which is nice, because now I can absorb this energy on a Turtonator. Turtonator can absorb Brutal Swings, no problem. And I do have a little bit of residual energy on my Glalie. I can absorb one more Brutal Swing, but now, because these confusions are adding up, I will look to overfarm. Back in comes the Raichu. Raichu is completely walled here, so I am just going to let, well, no, they're not completely walled. They could have gone for a Psyshock there, but the opponent ends up going for a Trailblaze, which is double resisted, trying to boost their attack. I am now going to pivot into my Glalie, pick up the knockout with an Avalanche, and now what does my opponent want to do? They want to come back in with the low HP Oranguru. Clearly something is wrong with my opponent's team, so I will be committing shield here and looking for a full rollout farm down. What is that final Pokemon? It is a Dugong in the back, but Dugong is not going to appreciate Shadow Ball number 1, and Shadow Ball number 1 nearly puts them at half HP. I'm able to make it to Shadow Ball number 2 on the CMP tie. The opponent, unaware of my residual energy, playing to a CMP tie that they do not win. And yes, Icy Wind or Drill Run will be enough to knock out, but we have done the damage we need. Icy Wind picks the knockout on the Glalie. We have so much energy on this Turtonator that we can go for one in the move, and this Flamethrower would easily knock out the Dugong, and now we have the energy we need to get the Ember farm down of the Oranguru, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, mirror leads. Once again, we've got Glalie into the shiny Glalie. So pretty cool pick from my opponent. Of course, you can see just by the CP difference that we have a good IV Glalie and that my opponent likely doesn't. And they throw on 4 right away, which I expected to be an Avalanche, but instead they're running a super effective Gyro Ball for the mirror, which is actually crazy tech from my opponent. It's still not enough to knock out, and we're still able to get to an Avalanche because the opponent tries to commit to a farm down, and we're able to grab a shield from the opponent. In comes Turtonator. Turtonator will look for an Ember farm down here. The opponent will get off a resisted Gyro Ball. They did not check the typing of what came in, and that is absolutely huge. In comes a Dusknoir in the back, but Dusknoir will be outpaced. We get to that Brutal Swing. This is super effective damage. The opponent will put up a second shield, so now in comes the Zoroark. Zoroark with a 2 shield advantage is where it absolutely wants to be. So going to be committing the shield on the Dynamic Punch. It's resisted, but we do not care. In comes a Turtonator. Turtonator will get to the Brutal Swing in only 4 Embers, so I'm forced to throw on the CMP tie. Shadow Ball nearly knocks out, but it does not do the job. Puts them at 1 HP, but that is okay because now I can let this go. They're trapped into that charge move. We get the double resisted Ember farm down. We leave with the Brutal Swing loaded for the Dusknoir, and Brutal Swing is super effective damage. It will easily knock out the Dusknoir, and we are able to take that win. Into the next matchup, we've got Glalie into Metang. So this is a bad lead, but we do have 2 better answers in the back, so going to be pivoting instantly into the Zoroark, and we are met with a Dugong. I will farm up to the Shadow Ball. Now I'm baiting with a foul play. Dugongs love to shield the first, and we do grab that shield from the opponent, which is really nice, because now I can look to overfarm in this matchup. I will put up a shield on the Icy Wind, as I know I can get to a Shadow Ball here, and even though my attack is lowered, like I've said time and time again, this is stab damage from a 1300 stat product Pokemon. It puts them deep into the red. We get the full Shadow Claw farm down, and we're able to flip switch, which is absolutely huge, because now we have the Turtonator on the Metang. The opponent instantly resigns the match, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Glalie into Dugong once again, so another fantastic lead. This opponent is going to stay in to play out this matchup, and that is what we love to see, because that means the opponent is highly likely to be core broken in the back. You're going to see that I'm much more cautious about the opponent going for catches in this matchup, even waiting the turn before throwing the Shadow Ball, because I do want to make sure this lands on the Dugong. Dugong will be outpaced in this matchup, or not outpaced, but we end up getting the charge move at the exact same time, but we win CMP, so the opponent ends up going for the catch onto a Oranguru where it is resisted, but that does give me the alignment that I need. So now I can come in with the Turtonator. Turtonator will be able to outpace the opponent to the Brutal Swing. It's super effective damage, but I will need a second in order to pick up the knockout. The opponent has to, of course, go for Brutal Swings of their own in this matchup. but I will once again be able to outpace the opponent as it is straight 8 turns to these brutal swings. Brutal swing number 2 picks up the knockout on the Oranguru. Back in comes Dugong. Dugong will be able to make it to a charge move here, but all that does is set up a farm down for the Zoroark. But no, in comes Glalie. Glalie will be met with the Claydol in the back, and now in comes Zoroark. Zoroark will of course have to commit a shield on the Rock Tomb here, but we have super effective coverage with Foul Play, so I'm going to go for back-to-back charge moves. It looks like the next Mud Slap will knock out, so I'm going to be forced to under-tap this charge move, as if I went for good timing, the Mud Slap would KO before I got off my charge move. So Foul Play number 2, I'm hoping to grab the second shield from my opponent, and that's exactly what happens. Back in comes Glalie. Glalie trying to make it to the Avalanche, but the opponent outpaces me to the Rock Tomb, and now this is tricky. I have to watch for the catch here. I'm going to just overfarm. We'll watch for my opponent to go for it. They finally go for it. I'm able to make it to the Shadow Ball on 100 energy, and Shadow Ball from this range will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Dugong. I'm now able to make it to the Avalanche. Avalanche is super effective damage on the Claydol here, so it picks up the knockout despite the Rock Tomb debuff, and we are able to take that win. So yeah, that is the Ember Turtonator. It is so good in this meta. If you have not run it, it is top meta for a reason, and I highly recommend trying it with Ember if you've been running it with Incinerate, and vice versa. Just get a feel for each of them, decide which is best for you. I felt like Ember was best for my play style, just constantly over farming, making sure to throw in good timing. I like the technical aspect of this game, and that is why I like running Ember. That said, if you're going to run Ember, run Dragon Claw. I know you could run Overheat for a hard nuke, but there's very few matchups where you actually want the fire coverage, whereas the neutral dragon coverage or super effective dragon coverage into opposing dragons I felt was more valuable. So that said, I do want to say thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel: Benny Hemlock, Dr. Mustache, Eliana, Perry G, Blue Nation, Peter Rushworth, Choppus Clip, Sons of Code, Salman Patil, and Immortal God, as well as an extra special thank you to the legend trainer members on this channel: Andrew Bitten, Musachu, Speedster, Estros, Fastity Boss, CD Slaskus, and Star Bonsai. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace!